It's been so long.
Yeah, how are you?
We were on a panel together, hosted by Tony Parisi. Gosh, 2015 about
Yeah,
WebXR.
long
And
time
look,
ago.
it's happening.
Yeah,
It's
getting
so
there.
exciting. Are you in France right now?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Are you happy to be home?
Yeah, it's great.
I bet. I bet. Oh, that's so good. Well, it's very exciting to have you here. I think you're probably a hero to many people here today, having taken a chance on the web, having taken a chance on a new spec, and brought it all the way. And Sketchfab really is a fantastic story because it is the tale of sort of, it's analogous to a little bit of where we are here. You had your co-founders were playing around with WebGL. They saw how useful it was, and you guys all sort of came together to find this perfect niche and see it all the way through, which is a hard thing to do in a technology stack that can let you do anything. It's hard not to die the death of 1,000 verticals, and you escaped it, my friend. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I'm excited to get into the early days of the story and how you got here. But before we get into that, how do you let your hair down? How did you celebrate when you had the big acquisition?
Well, to be honest, I didn't get much chance to celebrate quite yet because I mean it immediately went from and it was an immense amount of work to get it done, and then once it was done, it was a lot of work post acquisition, like integration and like transferring the team and the contract and all that. And then I was moving back to France as well and finding schools for the kids and finding a place to live in. And so I haven't
all during COVID.
Yeah, I haven't taken much of a break. So yeah, it's been super intense.
So intense. Well, I hope things are settling down a little bit there and you have more family and whatnot around you being home to make it easier. Are you, so I heard you're into woodworking. I don't know if you've had probably any chance to do that over the last while, but I bring it up because this seems to be one of the most passionate communities I've come across, like the Sketchfab community. And I think that there's something there with makers. I've noticed this sort of as I travel around through different tech communities, makers, the maker community, gosh, they're passionate. And so is this something that you are, do you think that you're a maker? Do you have that passionate maker thing? Is that what brought you into the Sketchfab community and makes you passionate in the beginning? Like that kind of idea of sculpting or creating online?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a maker. I love to make things, but then I really love the concept of publishing and finding an audience. I worked in photography before, but it applies to any content you make. I'm actually working on a blog post on this, but content you don't share is. I mean, it's at the end of this movie Into the Wild. Like have you seen the movie?
Mm-hmm.
His final note is happiness is real only when shared. And I think the same applies to content. Like you can you write a text and then, or you can keep it for yourself, but it becomes real when you share it and it resonates with people and it travels the world through the web. And same thing is true for photography. And of course, you're free to keep personal art for yourself, but until you put it out there and get feedback and critique, you're not gonna. I mean, you're not gonna maximize your potential and grow into what you're building. So it's a combination of making things and then putting
showing things, right? Yeah, it seems like a lot of people, like, they'd be making anyways, but you give them an opportunity to show their work, and specifically in the context to other makers, right? Like it's a very safe place.
Yeah.
You're not just like, look, I whittled a chair and everybody's like, great. It's like everybody here understands what went into it. So that opportunity to be seen and let something you created be seen, it makes me feel like that time, if you spend all this time making something and nobody sees it, it's kind of like that tree falling in the woods. Like, did it happen? So you're giving people this opportunity to show their work and get feedback. And that's very, very cool. I also, it seems like people build a lot of the tools that Sketchfab puts out from your community. Like you don't have like this, like you guys didn't go get this big Tiger style capital investment and hired all these hotshot developers. You guys are people in your community are building the things for your community, right?
Yeah, I guess it's a mix of luck. It started more as luck, and then we made it into our main strategy. But very early on, we exposed APIs so that you could connect things to Sketchfab. So we just exposed a way to do it, and then kind of organically, some people started building those add-ons. Like the first one was for Blender, the second one was for Max. So they would build tools for themselves to make it easier to publish from those tools to Sketchfab. And then we realized this was just the best distribution strategy and user acquisition strategy, because it allowed us to target a user base in a very precise way. It allowed us to offer an easier workflow for those people. It allowed us to show that we cared about them and had a special path for them. And then most importantly, it allowed us to have those software, so like Blender or Max, promote Sketchfab to their user base instead of us doing that, which is just way more powerful. So I think it's particularly true in France, but in tech in general, like people tend to assume like I've built the best tech and everything will follow. Like it's so good that people will notice by themselves that it's so good and I'm so great. And tech without distribution is completely useless. And distribution is at least half of the battle.
Yeah. And were you already thinking like, oh, this is our roadmap, we're going to do all these integrations? Like I love seeing you on Twitter, because I just see you creep new platforms and you're like, hey, maybe a little Sketchfab integration, it seems like a really key part of your strategy, but I'm wondering how much that came from people showing you versus you knowing that beforehand.
Well, so at the very beginning, we got some of the initial efforts done by the community, which kind of paved the way for making it into a deliberate strategy. And so when I saw the first two ones, I went full on to like spending a lot of my time specifically going after that. And so yeah, with our goal to be native. So it's cool to have the community build plugins, but then if it's just a plugin that you can only get from Sketchfab to install in your own tool, it's still not the ultimate distribution. And so the next level was to actually pitch the tools directly to integrate the plugins natively so that it would ship with the tool. And so today we ship with more than 70% of our integrations, which is just, we have a Sketchfab button in all those tools. We have a Sketchfab button in 90% of the 3D capture apps. It's just a fabulous distribution strategy. And so we really made this a deliberate effort. And then as we grew, now it happens organically. Like now people who release the scanning app, they know they have to have the shared Sketchfab button, otherwise they would be missing something. And so I do still sometimes ping apps myself if they haven't reached out to me, because I'm passionate about it and I want to make sure they didn't miss the opportunity. But more and more of it is happening kind of organically now.
Well, yeah, now it's like a must, right? Like you guys are the thing you got to integrate with. You don't need to really chase anyone. That's a nice place to be in when
only took 10 years.
Yeah, it's just a few sleeps. You're fine. Well, you had a successful web agency before you started all of this. Cedric was very big into the whole 3D thing, having a lot of success there. Pierre, Cedric, yourselves, how did you meet? And I guess for people in the audience who are coming into this space, or maybe they have their own projects and they're looking to kind of expand and grow, but it's a bleeding edge space. And so there's lots of, hot shots and talkers in these kinds of areas. How did you come together, and like what qualities do you see as the most important when making decisions to start a business or to go into a venture with somebody, particularly in an emerging space?
Well, I think the most important thing is that it's hard to do it with co-founders. It's already extremely hard with co-founders, but I think it's harder being by yourself. And I've always wanted to start my own thing. And for years, I was brainstorming by myself around my own ideas, limited by my own talents and capabilities. And then I realized, and I went through many like projects. I would send a new business plan to my wife every 3 months. And at some point, I realized nothing is going to happen if I don't find someone who can complement my skills. And I have a business background, so it was pretty clear what I was looking for. And so I just started meeting people, like at breakfast, at lunch, and at dinner, and just meeting as many people as you can. And that's how I met initially Cedric, completely randomly. Like I crashed at a party. I wasn't even invited, but someone I knew from a friend of a friend invited me. And at the time, I just started being passionate about 3D, but more through the 3D printing angle, because I do sculpture and I was just fascinated by this thing. And so I was telling everybody about 3D printing and maybe cool ideas around marketplace for 3D printing and so on. And then another learning is that a lot of people are afraid of sharing their ideas because they're like, oh, that's a genius idea, I can't talk about it. But nobody's gonna steal your idea. Like what matters is execution. So you should have, especially if you're by yourself, like you should talk about your idea until someone finds it compelling and want to build it with you. And so anyway, I ended up being introduced to, I was talking about 3D, and then someone told me, hey, you should talk to this guy in the back. He knows a bunch about 3D. And so this guy was Cedric. He had never heard about 3D printing, but he had been a self-taught 3D programmer in the gaming industry for 15 years. And he just happened to have built the first ever WebGL framework. Pretty much at the same time as 3JS. And he just had told nobody about it. And so I knew nobody about this, but I found it cool and creative. And it combines the concept. I mean, it catered to creators, and there was this concept of publishing and sharing. And so we decided to have lunch the next day. He showed up 90 minutes late. And at the time I was working at night, and at the time I didn't have much going on. I had quit my job to move to full-time meet people and figure out what to do. And anyway, he hadn't told anybody about the project. And I was pretty much the first non-tech person that was interested in what he was building. And so yeah, that was the match, because well, for me, I was fascinated by the concept, and he was obviously skilled at what he was doing. And for him, I was not from his world and was interested in what he was doing, which was also new to him. And so that's kind of how we started. And as soon as I started taking care of everything that was non-tech, I mean, we launched the thing, and it immediately took off. And so I could see that there was market fit in what he built, and he could see that I was able to market it. And then PA, so 3D was really into, Cedric was really into 3D, like hardcore rendering. I was really into non-tech, and then we were missing kind of the web skills to actually build the platform around the viewer. And so PA joined us a few months later to be the third co-founder to take care of the web.
Wow. So you guys, and so it was you taking a chance already. You were like, you're like, babe, I quit my job. I'm going to start a company. It's going to be great. And like, how is she feeling now? Because she must have been a little scared in those early days. You're going to meet up.
Well, at the beginning, I mean, so Cedric was still freelancing on WebGL. He was really one of the first ever WebGL freelancers. So he had his own clients. And on my end, I was building websites. And I mean, we both had like kind of way to pay rent by side gigs. And for the first 3 months was really like, hey, let's meet like once a week and chat, get to know each other and see where this goes. And then we launched the thing. I applied to accelerators. We got press. And then like in 3 weeks, we had 1,000 users, and we got selected in the accelerator.
Wow, 1,000 users in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Holy, well, you guys, that's exciting. I mean,
and then from there, yeah, everything started growing, and it was clear. And that's when we got into our first accelerator. We got office space, became clear, and then we got pressure from the accelerator to actually, officially start a company. And that's when we moved full time. But we had already gotten, so Cedric had already built an MVP that was ready to launch. That was one of the chances I got. And then it immediately took off, which is the other luck we got, which was enough to to decide to go full time on it.
That's so exciting. Well, it's I always love hearing those early days stories, because it's sometimes, it's not that obvious, right? And you think like, but it also, it does happen that way, where there's business people out there that are like, God, I want to do something, right? And hanging out around, were you hanging out around technical communities and kind of like lurking? Or were you just like, it was just kind of a chance thing? Because people ask me that a lot. Like, hey, where do I find a technical co-founder? Where do I find a co-founder?
I was lurking with tech. I mean, it was the early days of the tech scene in Paris. And so it was the early groups of, like entrepreneurs and hanging out with that type of people.
That's great. So has your vision and mission changed along the way, or was it always like, we're going to be the YouTube of 3D on the web? Like,
I mean, the mission. So today we word it saying our mission is to make 3D accessible, and I mean the original mission was to help content creators showcase. Share 3D to the web, showcase 3D to the web, bring 3D to the web. So I think we're still pretty true to our mission. I guess the main evolution is that initially we were in a very YouTube approach, where the player is the content and the content is the player, and the content has to live within the player. And if the content leaves the player, we lose the content and we lose its value. And then we realized that 3D is just a very different type of media, and that our content was potentially even more powerful if it could leave Sketchfab to be part of something bigger, like a game, a movie, or a VR AR experiment. And we also realized that if we opened up the demand side of things, when we launched, we were only going after content creators. And then we realized if we opened up the content side, we would be the go-to place not only for content creators, but also for people who need content.
Yeah.
And this was a key shift.
A natural two-sided marketplace, right?
Yeah.
Right. Like, it would almost be like if YouTube was like, now you can use all of these as stock footage for your videos or something, right? It's like you fell in love with the thing in the box, and you realized you're like the little kid that, like, you get them a toy and they're like, but we like the box. That's great. That's very cool. So with this idea now that the object itself is the value prop, I saw in one of your recent posts this really cool AR filter on Instagram called "The Choice Is Yours." It's like the little red pill, blue pill thing you can put in your hand from this Instagram app. But the thing that I found interesting about that was it had a built-in Creative Commons attribution right into the Instagram filter through Spark AR. So it's gone from your platform to Spark AR. Somebody's made something with it, and then it's come back to you. Oh, weird! I'm getting a weird echo. Somebody hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you illuminate us a little bit on your vision of the future for attribution and ownership, specifically like with models across the immersive web or the metaverse? I'd love to hear like what your vision of that is, and once you realize it could come out of the box.
Have Sam deafen her.
I mean, the way we do it now is pretty simple, but so it's through Creative Commons license, which comes with attribution requirements. And what's nice is that with a lot of our integrations, it's built-in attribution, which means the attribution is automatically added to the piece of content and travels with whatever content is made with this Sketchfab content, and then links back to Sketchfab. And so I think it works well. I guess the question for longer term is how do we figure out business models around this in a way where the original creator can get some of the value that is created with the larger piece using his content. And we have a number of thoughts around this that we're not ready to share. There's a lot of happening in the blockchain space that could bring some answers as well. But it's early days. Today we're more focused on building those distribution channels in places of like mass consumption, like Instagram, and then we can figure out the next step, which is business model and that sort of things. You're muted now.
Sorry, I know. I'm sure a lot of people ask you about NFTs and things all the time, but
yes.
and I'm not going to, because I know it's a big topic, and you probably, like you say, can't get into it. But I do think just what I found interesting about that is you've already worked on this concept. This concept's already a part of your values. An NFT is just another certificate, right? And so it's interesting to see that you like something like Creative Commons and that throughput of objects across platforms into different things. It kind of shows what the future can be like for these emerging technologies when you see it already working in your platform. Now, I see that you've launched, like a store for people to sell their assets. And last year, Envato's community, their earnings topped $1 billion, which is huge. You have people who make like one pitch deck template, and they're making like $100,000 a year on it. And so, do you have an earnings report for Sketchfab creators yet? Are there like, where do you see, if somebody's in the 3D space or interested in being in the 3D space, what kind of models should they be making, and who are your top earners?
So we don't really share stats on this yet. The marketplace is still rather young. Like the marketplace is 3 years old, and Sketchfab is 10 years old, and so we're much newer than a lot of those other 3D marketplaces. That being said, top earners. I remember this user who was able to buy a physical car from the sales of his 3D scanned cars, and he sells all these cars for like $4 or $5, and he sells so many of them that he was able to buy a car with that.
Yes.
It was pretty.
So you've celebrated? This is like Sketchfab's first car purchase by sale of cars.
Yeah, well,
that's a big deal, I think.
I sell scans of shoes, and I buy my new pair of sneakers with the money of my scanned shoes, which is pretty fun. No, I think people should find their niche. Like it's important to, like in any medium, like you have to be known for something, and so you figure out like a niche where you are known for this thing. And so we have someone who only does crazy futuristic creators like dinosaurs. We have someone who only scans destroyed cars, and they are known for this thing, and so they build their audience, and that works. And otherwise, regularly publish content. Like you need to be active and always have new content. That's super important. And then figuring out the right pricing, not too high, not too low. So iterate on pricing. Those are the things that come to mind. But otherwise, you'd be amazed what people buy. Like today, I just sold a 3D scan of a piece of foie gras from a French restaurant. And it's crazy because you can't buy foie gras in the US, but you can buy them on Sketchfab.
That's the Frenchest thing you've said all day.
Yeah.
I love it. So people are buying foie gras, they're buying abandoned cars. Do you see this? Is this like a roadmap or a sort of key result item for you to have a $1 billion earning community of 3D creators?
It's super important for us to help creators make money on top of our platforms, and if they are successful, we'll be successful as a side effect. And so thanks to Epic, we're able to lower our fees from 30 to 12%. And so I think this is a major move in making creators more successful with the platform. And now we need to grow the demand and make them even more successful.
Yeah, I was happy to see your community 99% happy about the acquisition. There's the few people that are like, no, big guys buying smaller guys, but everybody's like, look at all the extra money I'm going to make. Look at what this means for the community. I know you probably can't talk too much about your deal with Epic, but I'm curious if there was a shared vision for openness and interoperability with Tim Sweeney that brought you together on this deal. Did you have your sights on this type of outcome?
That's lots of questions into one.
Sorry.
I mean, for us, it was super important. So we weren't looking for that type of outcome. Like, I mean, we're open to having conversations, but we never initiated, like some process to get into that. And we were only interested in people who would let us keep building what we want to build, which is Sketchfab. And a key part of Sketchfab is being integrated everywhere. And not a lot of people were able to understand that, see that, and value that. I think a number of people in larger companies would have been mostly interested in the technology, or mostly interested in the developers, or mostly interested in the content. And we were very aligned with Epic that they were very clearly interested in everything, like the community, the ecosystem around it, the tech and the content. And so, yeah, it was. I mean, we do this. Epic is focused on building tools for creators to publish content, and that's really what we do. So it's.
Oh, it's so exciting. I think that was like a big moment for everybody, seeing that, oh, you're still going to work with Unity, you're still going to work with all these people, and seeing that Unreal was excited about your community sort of as the biggest piece of your company, right? That's very encouraging. So we only have a couple of minutes left, but I wanted to we're in this parallel. In the beginning, we were talking about how there's kind of maybe a parallel. We're about to hopefully get this WebXR API spec through. You started when WebGL was sort of becoming stable. Provided that you will soon have these standards in place for WebXR, which vertical or use case would you be starting today if you were starting all over? Or put it another day, what company do you want someone to start in this space?
I'm really passionate about 3D capture, and so anything around this is dear to me. And within 3D capture, I'm passionate about cultural heritage and the ability to crowdsource the digitization of ancient art and all that for for broader access. And like on my desk, I have this 3D printed Moai. So the Moai came from Easter Island, went to the British Museum, was 3D scanned, published on Sketchfab by the British Museum, downloaded for free under Creative Commons, 3D printed in the US, and now it's on my desk. And it's just amazing that I have this piece of history through the platform I've built. And this is a sort of effort I want to push.
I love that, the imagery of this concept moving around time and space and then ending up on your desk is really fantastic. And I'm so grateful for your time, Alban, and congratulations on this huge accomplishment, this huge win. Sketchfab has made all of our community better by giving them tons of content. I've made so many weird little worlds with stuff I've grabbed from Sketchfab, so I'm super grateful. And yeah, we're really excited to see where everything goes.